In the emerald embrace of West Africa's shore, a land whispered secrets of both immense wealth and profound woe. This is the story of Côte d'Ivoire, the Ivory Coast, a name that tells only half of a complex and often tragic tale. From the 1600s to the 1800s, this region became a focal point for European traders, drawn by a resource so prized it gave the land its name, ivory. Imagine vast herds of elephants roaming freely through lush forests and savannas. Their tusks, gleaming white gold, became the engine of a booming trade network. European ships, primarily Portuguese who first arrived in the 15th century, but later joined by the French, Dutch, and English, anchored at coastal ports like Grand-Bassam and Assigny. They came bearing goods, guns, textiles, alcohol, and beads, to exchange for these magnificent tusks. For a time, the Ivory Coast was the world's premier source of ivory, a luxury commodity fueling Europe's appetite for ornate carvings, piano keys, and billiard balls. Local African kingdoms, such as the Akan states, initially controlled this trade, acting as powerful middlemen. They organized hunting parties and established caravan routes that stretched deep into the interior, bringing the precious ivory to the coast. This trade brought new wealth and new technologies, like firearms, which in turn shifted power dynamics within the region. But as the demand for ivory grew insatiable, the elephant populations began to dwindle under the relentless pressure. The very foundation of the region's prosperity was being carved away, tusk by tusk. But ivory wasn't the only commodity being traded on these shores. A darker, more sinister shadow ran parallel to the gleaming ivory trade, the transatlantic slave trade. While the neighboring Gold Coast and Slave Coast were more infamous centers for the human trade, the Ivory Coast was not immune. The same ports that saw tusks loaded onto ships also witnessed the horrific departure of human beings, captured and sold into bondage. Often, these were people taken during conflicts between rival African states, wars that were themselves frequently intensified by the influx of European firearms acquired through trade. It created a vicious cycle. Guns were traded for captives, and those captives were then exchanged for more guns to wage more wars and capture more people. The relationship between the ivory and slave trades was deeply intertwined. Sometimes, they were part of the same transaction. A European captain might barter for a shipment that included both ivory tusks and enslaved people. The same networks and coastal forts that facilitated the movement of ivory were also used to hold and process human captives before they were forced onto the hellish journey of the Middle Passage to the Americas. As the elephant herds were depleted by the early 18th century, the economic focus for some traders shifted more heavily towards human cargo. The depletion of one natural resource tragically increased the exploitation of another. This transition highlights a brutal economic logic where profit was pursued at any cost, human or animal. The infrastructure of trade, once built on ivory, was readily adapted to perpetuate the horrors of slavery. The impact on the societies of the Ivory Coast was devastating and multifaceted. While certain ruling elites and merchants grew wealthy and powerful, many communities were fractured and destroyed. The constant threat of raids for captives created an atmosphere of fear and instability that tore apart the social fabric. Generations were lost, families were separated forever, and the demographic landscape of the region was permanently altered. The introduction of European goods and the reliance on foreign trade also disrupted traditional economies and modes of production, making local societies increasingly dependent on a global market they could not control. The legacy of this era is complex. It left behind not just a name derived from a depleted animal population, but also deep societal scars from the violence and dehumanization of the slave trade. This period, from the 1600s to the 1800s, was a time of profound transformation for the Ivory Coast, driven by the relentless European demand for luxury goods and cheap labor. The story is not just about elephants and ivory, it's about power, exploitation, and the collision of worlds. The name Ivory Coast endures today, a beautiful name that conceals a history marked by both natural splendor and human suffering. It serves as a permanent reminder of a time when the value of a tusk could outweigh the value of a human life, and how the pursuit of one form of wealth fueled the machinery of another far more terrible trade. Understanding this history is crucial to understanding the forces that shaped not only Côte d'Ivoire but the entire modern world. It's a haunting echo across the waves, a story written in both ivory and in chains. Thank you so much for joining me on this historical journey. If you found this video informative, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the stories that have shaped our world. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next video.